What's going on, Vikings fans? Today's show, we're going to be talking about drafting Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback out of Penn State. Mel Kiper dropped his latest mock draft, and that's who we had the Vikings selecting. Then we're going to be talking about trading up for Anthony Richardson. Another YouTuber, Brett Coleman, in his latest mock draft, had the Vikings trading up to 3 with the Arizona Cardinals and selecting Anthony Richardson. We're also going to touch on the Chase Young, Montez Sweat rumors, as the Commanders could be shopping them, and who knows, maybe the Vikings are going to be the team that picks them up. But guys, it's draft weekend here. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Every single Vikings pick, and who knows, if they do trade up for number 3 for Anthony Richardson, I promise you we will be going live for that. Make sure you subscribe. Don't miss out on a single thing. Go down there, hit that subscribe button, completely free. We'll be your go-to shop for Minnesota Vikings news, rumors, whatever it is during the NFL draft. So let's talk about it. Drafting Joey Porter Jr. Mel Kiper dropped his final mock draft this morning and had the Vikings selecting Penn State cornerback Joey Porter Jr. What I love this. If Joey Porter fell to the Vikings at 23, fire me up. That sounds like a dream draft pick for the Minnesota Vikings. And he was a dog this past year at Penn State. He wasn't really targeted too much this year, only giving up 50% completion percentage, 143 yards allowed only, 0 touchdowns, 11 pass breakups, and 1 interception for Joey Porter Jr. so far. I think Joey Porter, he would slot in great with this Vikings cornerback room. You can honestly put Joey Porter, lock him down as cornerback 1 for the Minnesota Vikings, shift Byron Murphy to cornerback 2, and then kind of have Andrew Booth Jr. and Caleb Evans battle it out for that 3rd cornerback spot. I also like Joey Porter because he would allow Caleb Evans to kind of hop back in the nickel position for the Vikings, which I think would be a huge addition. But overall, I think if the Vikings do stay at the 23rd pick, they don't trade up, they don't trade back, I think cornerback has to be the pick. Obviously, you want to go into the NFL draft, always you want to go best player available. Whoever the best player is on your big board, that's who you want to take. But with the way the Vikings' kind of roster is kind of shaken out a little bit, I honestly think the Vikings, I think it would be a better call for them to just sit there at 23 and take Joey Porter Jr., whoever it may be. I also like a guy like Deonte Banks, which we'll get into here in a second. But this is going to be the pinned comment on today's video. Who do you guys think the Vikings will draft tonight? Predict it. Rub that crystal ball of your guys' and answer today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break your way. Sit back, let it play, answer today's pinned comment. Who do you think the Minnesota Vikings will draft tonight? So my take on Joey Porter Jr., Vikings fans, he's Xavier Rhodes 2.0. He's got the long arms. He's great in getting up and press man. He can run a bunch of different coverages like he did at Penn State. And his career at Penn State, he wasn't tested at all. I think that's a huge indicator to how other coaches view opposing teams' corners. He wasn't thrown at all this past season. They understood that this Penn State defense revolved around JPJ, and they would not throw the ball his direction at all. In the Big Ten, they got a ton of good receivers. They wouldn't really test him at all throughout the season. Only 143 yards allowed. I think he's very similar to Xavier Rhodes, those long arms. And Xavier Rhodes, that 2017 All-Pro year, he was the best cornerback in the league. Not saying Joey Porter could be that, but he might be. Who knows? I also want to say this. Watch out for Deonte Banks tonight. I think it's going to come down to a guy like Deonte Banks, Emmanuel Forbes, and a Joey Porter Jr. Deonte Banks, a cornerback out of Maryland. He's a dog. I love what Deonte Banks did. He's a freak athlete. Ran a 4.35 at the NFL Scouting Combine, and he was great at Maryland this past season. Only giving up 43.3% completion percentage when he is targeted, 258 yards, 4 touchdowns allowed at 8 pass breakups, and 1 interception. I think Deonte Banks, it would be a great call for the Minnesota Vikings at 23 as well. Those are the 2 corners that I kind of have circled on my big board for the Vikings to draft, whether it is a Joey Porter Jr. or a Deonte Banks. The Vikings, if you could get one of those corners tonight without having to trade up, I think that would be a massive win for the Minnesota Vikings because this cornerback room, by far the biggest need on this Vikings team. If you could get one of these 2 at 23, that would fire me up. But I'll ask you guys this. If you're sitting there at 23 and let's just say the board falls to you where you have Joey Porter Jr. and Deonte Banks on the board, let me know who you would draft. Give me a JP for Joey Porter Jr. or give me a DB for Deonte Banks. I think I would lean Joey Porter Jr. here. But if they draft either of them, I will be fired up. And we're also going to be going live for every single pick at Chat Sports on our main page. If you go to youtube.com/chatsportstv, you're going to see Tom Downey, Marshall Green, Will Scott, the whole Chat Sports crew banging out and knocking out every single draft pick. They're going to be giving you great analysis. So make sure you do tune in. They're going to be live 2 hours before the draft starts. Check it out, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Let's talk about trading up for Anthony Richardson. This is kind of the latest news and buzz around the Vikings possibly trading up for a quarterback because Brett Coleman, another YouTuber here, he had the Vikings drafting Anthony Richardson at number 3 overall and trading up with the Arizona Cardinals in his latest mock draft. I think this is incredibly interesting because when he was kind of discussing about it, somebody asked him, like, why do you think this? And he was like, I can't really get into it. He's a pretty well-connected guy, so it's going to be curious to see if there's any truth to these rumors that Brett Coleman dropped. But Anthony Richardson, listen, he's an athletic freak. Obviously, that completion percentage does concern you at 53.8 in his senior year at Florida. But I will say, he gives me such vibes of just a Dante Culpepper, Josh Allen type of player. I think, obviously, he would need to develop. But if you could allow him to sit behind Kirk Cousins for a year, pair him up with Christian Darrisaw at the left tackle position, give him an elite weapon like a Justin Jefferson, also give him that safety net like a TJ Hawkinson at tight end. I think Anthony Richardson, he's got the athletic ability. It's about just kind of sandpapering his game out and kind of turning him into a top franchise quarterback because I do believe Anthony Richardson has top 10 quarterback potential in the league. And to win a Super Bowl, I think you need a top 10 guy. Overall, I think this would be an all-in move for the Vikings. This is a move where either Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, they'll get extensions on their deal, or they'll get fired if he doesn't work out. That's why I think it's just an all-in, pushing all the poker chips to the center of the table. Like I said, people will get fired or extended over a move like this. I think Kwesi, this is his second year as a GM. If he trades up for an Anthony Richardson and this doesn't work out, he'll probably get fired. But if this does work out and he does trade up for a stud like Anthony Richardson, let's just say he turns out to be a top 5 guy in the NFL, he'll get extended. And same with Kevin O'Connell. If he's able to kind of mold Anthony Richardson into a really solid NFL quarterback, I think we could be seeing an all-in move here for the Vikes, and this happens, this would fire me up. But I'll ask you guys this. Would you trade up for Anthony Richardson, or AR-15 is what we're calling him? Give me a Y for yes, or give me an N for no down in the comments section. Honestly, if this is me, this is my dream draft pick, everybody. If this is what the Vikings do tonight, they trade up to 3 to the Arizona Cardinals, or they trade up to 10 with the Philadelphia Eagles, or whoever it may be, and they end up getting Anthony Richardson, this would be my dream pick for tonight. This would fire me up more than anything. I hope it happens. Really unlikely. We'll see how aggressive the Vikings are with trading up, or if they just sit there at 23 and draft a corner. Who knows? But some other news around the NFL, and this is actually coming from Dov. He says the Commanders could trade one of their talented pass rushers, either defensive end Chase Young or defensive end Montez Sweat during the NFL draft per Dan Graziano. Both are pending free agents in 2024. So starting with Chase Young, his career has kind of started out hot and then kind of taken a step back the past couple of seasons. 8 sacks in his rookie year, 2 sacks in his second year, and 0 sacks in year 3. I'm still a big fan of Chase Young, the edge rusher out of Ohio State. I think he could be a really solid player for any NFL defense. He's great at getting to the quarterback. Do I think the Vikings could possibly trade for him? Probably not, since the Vikings already have to make a move on Zadarius Smith. Talking about Montez Sweat, though, 45 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 28 QB hits, and 8 sacks in 2022. This Commanders defensive line this past season was probably one of the better defensive lines in the NFL. I mean, you had guys like, obviously, Chase Young, but then Daron Payne, Montez Sweat. Those two were both dogs over there in Washington. Do I think the Vikings have a chance to trade for either one of these guys? Probably not, because they still have to make a move on Zadarius Smith. And then, obviously, we signed Marcus Davenport, still have Danielle Hunter. I don't really think the Vikings are kind of in the edge market. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe the Vikings could throw them their first-round pick and drop a blockbuster trade and get a guy like Chase Young. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. It is officially draft weekend. It's day 1 of the NFL draft. I am fired up. If you guys made it to the end of today's video, just give me a real one down in the comments section. I'll be checking in and seeing who the real ones are. Guys, I'm fired up. It's going to be a great time. Make sure you subscribe, stay in the loop, and as always, Skol Vikes.